Hey everybody, and welcome to the Microlecture for Chapter 9. It's about leadership and decision making. As I said, microlectures are for me to highlight some of the things that get covered in the chapter. Maybe I can add a little something to it. So that's why I produce them. You are responsible, and most of the test questions come from the entire chapter in the text, just so you know. Alright, so leadership and decision making is always an interesting topic to go over. I should point out there's two videos to watch that are in our module. The one from Gary Klein is a fairly long video. You really only need to watch about the first half of it or so. You get the concepts that he talks about within that first half of the video. Okay, so let's dive into chapter 9. So the learning objectives for you here are to define leadership and distinguish it from management. There is a difference between the two. You want to be able to summarize early approaches to the study of leadership, discuss the concept of situational approaches to leadership, and talk about transformational and charismatic perspectives on leadership, and identify and discuss leadership substitutes and neutralizers. You want to be able to discuss leaders as coaches and examine gender and cross-cultural issues in leadership. You want to be able to describe strategic leadership, ethical leadership, and virtual leadership. And then finally, you want to relate leadership to decision-making and discuss both rational and behavioral perspectives on decision-making. So I always ask this question in my in-person classes. I say, what is leadership? What does it mean to people? And you get all kinds of answers on that. It's very interesting. We all have very different views of what leadership means. So I'm going to show you the textbook kind of version of it, which, again, I don't think necessarily is all that much better than anything else, but at least it gives you an idea. Leadership is the processes and behaviors used by someone, let's say like a manager, to motivate, inspire, and influence the behavior of others. Okay, so if you recall from our first chapter on management, we talked about the 4 pillars of management, and one of them is leadership. So it's an important part of the entire management process. There's a difference between them. So here, again, if we think about management, we think about that overall view of planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. Okay, leadership is really setting agendas, aligning resources, getting people inspired to carry forward the mission, and then monitoring the results. So it's similar in a sense, but it's really designed for 2 different things. So leadership and management are not one and the same. Peter Drucker is a very well-known management thought leader, if you will. He's written a lot of different things, but over the years, and was very influential in management theory thinking. But he said something I thought was pretty good. He said, management is doing things right, leadership is doing the right thing. And it seems like that's a subtle difference, but it really isn't. And kind of getting an idea of what leadership really means. Like we saw in chapter 8, we talked about basic human behavior and the idea of motivation theory. A lot of motivation theory translates also into leadership theory. And so I'm giving you that same kind of view, which is a timeline of what, as we described, leadership and what it means. So starting with the great man theory and going through different types of definitions of what types of leadership there is, behavioral theories, contingency theories, Blake Moten and Hersey Blanchard leadership theories. They aren't in our text, but they get taught quite frequently in leadership classes. And then there's transactional theories and transformational theories of leadership as well. There are so many books. If you look up leadership at like, say, for example, Amazon, it's amazing how many books there are that have been written about leadership. It's mind-numbing, actually. I'm going to briefly talk about the Blake Moten's managerial grid. This is a commonly taught thing, so I want to make sure you all had an exposure to it and have seen it. It describes on a grid different types of management based on somebody's concern for people in general, and somebody's concern for completing tasks in general, and with kind of a score going from low to high for each one of them. And it is pretty interesting to do the test for it, and actually when the the behaviors observed, it's kind of an interesting thing. And almost nobody sees themselves as other people see them as a leader. It's just that is almost universally true. Okay, so and then the Hersey and Blanchard situational leadership model is another very, very common one. It's been taught for a long time, and you'll see it often in management texts, also in any type of leadership classes. And it talks about situational leadership being kind of on a continuum, and it has to do. It's a little bit like what we just saw, but it just talks about different called quadrants of leadership style. And situational leadership, and when do you actually, use these? Because situational leadership is absolutely true. I've been asked this question many, many times in job interviews. It's like, what's your leadership style? And I said, it depends. It depends on the situation. If I'm going in and doing a turnaround, it's pretty dictatorial. It's pretty much, hey, this is what we're doing, and go along for the ride or don't. And then another one's more participative. So we might say like, what do you guys think about this? What should we do? What do you think we should do? People have a lot more say. So it really is situational. It really matters. Okay. Last thing I want to talk about, and I don't know why they bring it up in this chapter particularly, but I think it's a real interesting thing. It's the ability to make decisions. And there's a thing called analysis paralysis, and it's been around since the 60s. And it's basically always seeking more information before making a decision. And it can be very, very problematic. So I remember launching a very significant new market for a large international company. And it was a pretty big deal, and it was a pretty big investment on the company's part. And there's a lot of things going on that just made it kind of a tough one. But it took me a little while to put the plan together. And the CEO of the company came by one day and he goes, how far along are you? And then I said, oh, I don't know. I'm not really sure how do I answer that. I'm not done. And he said, so he starts lobbing numbers out there. 50% there, 80% there. And I was like, okay, if you're going to do this, you're forcing me, maybe 70% there. He goes, that's what I thought. Just get this going. Just do it now. He said, no more thinking. Just let's get this thing on the road and get it moving. So I thought it was really kind of an interesting way of looking at it. I was trying to be so thorough and risk averse, and he was like, you're hurting us by not getting this out there. So anyways, an interesting little thing I learned. So how do you avoid it? Is you have to trust your decision-making ability. A lot of times people don't, and that can be, so you try to make up for it by getting more information. You believe that your decision with risk is far better than no decision at all. And that's almost always true in business. And know that you have the ability, once you start doing something, to course correct. If you go down a path and your plan isn't 100% right, and they never are, something's going to go wrong, you can always change the direction. You can make, hopefully not huge changes, but you can always make changes, and you will make changes. I mean, that's the most amazing part of it. If you think your plan is going to go perfectly as you put it together, you're going to be wrong. So it's your ability to see that and act on it is what makes you a good manager and a good leader. Okay? All right, well, that's it for this one. If you have any questions about it, don't hesitate to reach out, and best of luck.